Hello and welcome to It's a Code U, mental health support for those working in healthcare. This is a podcast created for healthcare employees to explore not only issues relating to mental and emotional health, but also unique challenges that those working in healthcare are faced with. Your hosts are Adina Tucker, a licensed clinical social worker with Dartmouth Health, and Jennifer Hinsey, an MSW also with Dartmouth Health. Welcome to It's a Code U. In keeping with our theme of finding balance in an unbalanced world, closing out April, we are going to be talking to you about how to create a work-life balance when you are a healthcare worker, a shift worker, or maybe you just work in a very high-stress environment. And when you work in healthcare, you're often working long hours. The environment can be fast-paced and stressful. If you don't have a feeling of some kind of balance, you can experience frustration and even burnout. So today we're going to take a look at what types of strategies can be implemented both personally and within the work environment. I'd also like to say that one thing that most of us could start by doing is by lowering our expectations and standards of ourselves, allowing ourselves to prioritize our own needs and giving ourselves time to do those things by letting the dishes sit a couple of extra hours, or grabbing takeout one night a week instead of cooking, or doing a very easy meal that's maybe not as nutritious but is cheap and easy. Fold that laundry tomorrow. We put a lot of expectations on ourselves that at times can make it harder to find some sense of balance.
Dina, I love that little reminder for everyone listening out there and for us too. I think we all struggle with high expectations of ourselves. And it reminds me of something some of our team members talked about recently, and that was, is perfect balance even achievable? Is that even real? Right? So many things are out of whack. We all have so much that we're juggling. The concept of even finding that perfect balance, that total balance, been possible. But try as we might and try as we will, there is a lot of research that shows that work-life balance is positively associated with well-being as well as job satisfaction. So, broaching balance, right? Trying to maybe have a little bit more balance. Knowing even where your bounds of balance are. And how do we get there? It can help us with overall life satisfaction, that is for sure. And certainly, I think we all have experienced when a lack of balance can increase anxiety, depression, and mental health problems and burnout. And just as a little reminder, burnout is more than just stress, and it can involve feelings of exhaustion, feeling disconnected and cynical about your job. And experiencing burnout in a medical profession can also lead to lower career satisfaction and increase depressive symptoms and hopelessness. Research also shows that having a healthy work life balance can impact all areas of burnout, so these things truly are connected. Now, let's talk about a few ways that you can try to balance life as much as possible. Well, for starters, you can try to plan out your schedule and practice time management. When you find ways to plan your schedule and practice this time management strategies, you can find areas that really work for you. Here's an example, and then we'll give some general tips that you could consider using in ways that work best with your specific needs and way of life. So, an example of looking at your personal situation could be, let's say you're a morning person. By the end of the day, you just don't have the capacity to make decisions or start new projects. So, maybe you'd prefer to get up early. I'll get up earlier, review my calendar for the day, and do food prep in the early morning before everyone else in the household is up. For other people, this might be absolutely a miserable idea, but it could be entirely effective for you. You can always swap the time frames when maybe you plug these things in. All of the strategies that we share are options, but you have to keep your own mind in life, your own needs, and your preferences to find out what will be helpful and make your life more balanced, not more burdened. Another idea, make sure you have some sort of household calendar. If you have a partner or older children, you can consider doing a shared calendar so that everyone is aware of any appointments or things that need to get done. That can also help reduce the likelihood that something gets overlooked. And of course, as we know, that can add more stress. You can even put a dry erase calendar in a common area, like maybe the kitchen. And at the beginning of each month, you can write out what's in your calendar on the one hanging up so that it's visible to everyone as they pass by it.
Some other ways that you can plan your schedule and practice time management would be maybe having a morning schedule. And that can be especially helpful if you're often feeling rushed in the mornings and that adds more stress to your day. You could prep what you need for the morning the night before, or if it's possible to prep for the week on Sunday, try to do that. When I worked in the hospital years ago, when I had assignments where they were all week and I would have to get the kids ready for school, on Sunday, I would actually pick out this sounds really silly, but I would pick out my outfits for each day. So I would try on everything so that then I didn't have to go through that whole, like, "This doesn't fit," or whatever the morning of, and then I would have just, like, 5 outfits hanging, and then I could just grab one, and I already knew. You can consider meal planning and prepping on non-work days so that on days when you work, you have less decisions to make and less to do. This is also something I practiced at one
Hmm.
point, which is I would just make my lunches for the week. Like, I would get extra chicken and, like, some vegetables and
Ah.
just roast them, and then I'd have my little containers that I got from the TJ Maxx Home Goods, and I would just make all my containers and my little snacks, and then that way I could just grab it and put it in my lunchbox.
Yeah.
And it really does, like, it seems like it wouldn't make that much of a difference, but when you're rushing out the door and all you have to do is grab something, and it's something you actually wanna eat, it's just it does make your day a little bit better. And then you can try to implement some time management strategies that help with a task that you know you have to get done, so prioritizing those and looking at some strategies. Another tip is to have a plan for areas that might cause you to take more time doing something than you have. So, if you have tasks to complete that don't require a lot of mental capacity at home, try to think of ways to fit them in while doing other things. Let's say you want to exercise, try doing that while
Yeah.
watching your favorite show. So you still get that relaxation, but you're getting your exercise done.
Hmm.
Also, making your health a priority and practicing stress management. So it can be really easy to forget your own health, even while working in an environment where you focus on the health of others all day. So, making sure you go to all your preventative healthcare appointments, not putting off going to the doctor if you have a concern, and then prioritizing time for exercise or thinking of ways to get into small bursts. For example, walking a lap around the hallways if you have an extra minute, or fitting in a 10-minute walk a few times a day, even indoors, because that time does add up and it does help your overall cardiovascular health and everything else. So it's, even little ways to get it in will also help with stress reduction.
I think that's excellent. And it's true. It really does add up throughout the day. It's kind of like, the recommendation if you take the stairs every time, you need to maybe it's only a set of 10, but you got to run up and down them 10 times a day. Well, that's actually a lot of stairs. So how about that? You can also consider doing perhaps a 5-minute meditation when you get out of bed or before you go to bed each day, or maybe even on your lunch break or something. Just carve out 5 minutes and take some time to zone out a little bit and make time to disconnect from work. Maybe that's not a full on 5 meditation while you're in the midst of your workday, but maybe a postcard or looking out the window if you have access to one and just taking a couple minutes to give your brain a little break, stare out into the distance or something pleasant, and just focus on that for a bit. You can also take breaks you're allotted while at work. I know some folks, especially healthcare workers, have a tendency to completely blow through their breaks, continuing to finish up something, or maybe you get in the habit of, oh, I know this is my break, but this is just going to take me a couple extra minutes just to finish it. And then before you know it, you only have a minute left of your whole break. Well, do the future you a favor and just hit pause on whatever you got going on and take that break. Even if it's just a walk to the water fountain or standing up, stretching out a little bit, Future you will thank you. Advocating for yourself in those moments and asking to take your breaks, especially if there's an impossible situation going on at work, and we've all been there, and you can't take your break at that moment. It is also fair and okay to advocate for yourself after the situation's cleared up, whatever's going on, and you're finished, it's resolved, to ask to take your break or take a little time, right? Once that's all, so that you can get yourself a little time to recharge. Remember, you deserve it and you're worth it.
Some other ways you can take breaks that can help give you more balance is with technology. So, the way technology is today, somebody can always reach us. I think we've talked about this before. Like, used to, you want to talk to somebody, you call them, maybe they answer, maybe they don't. And if they have an answering machine, you could leave a message and maybe they'll call you back and maybe they don't. But now we are reachable 24/7, not just by people in our personal lives, but our jobs as well. So trying to stay off your phone a few hours each day, and social media can be a distraction and something to be funny and give you some humor, but it can also add to stress given things like doom scrolling and bad news. So taking a break can be really helpful from social media. And then avoid checking your work email on the weekends or when not at work, because then it can really add to that whole stress of the anticipatory stress of, oh, I have all this waiting for me, so that you can't be present and enjoy your time away from work. Also, taking time to think about what your priorities are. So, from time to time, make a list of the things that are most important to you, and then consider if you need to shift things or make changes to ensure that your priorities are getting the attention they need. That happens from time to time. Just because something was a priority a month or two ago doesn't mean it is today. And some examples of how to do this is, let's say you want more time with your family. So consider letting those dishes sit in the sink a little bit longer, or assigning more chores to your children. They're old enough to help, or asking them to help you with some of the chores that you're working on. That's a great way to involve them in the household and really drive home the idea of, like, we all work together, but also give you a break as well. A lot of times we have this idea of how our home should look, and we can really run ourselves ragged trying to achieve a certain standard. So, loosening up some of those ideals to prioritize the things that really nurture us, fill our tank up, relieve our stress, that can be really helpful.
Absolutely. And that kind of reminds me of something I think we've talked about on an episode before, and it's giving ourselves permission at home to have that drawer that's just perpetually messy, or that room that's just, this is the catch all and that's just what it's going to be, or that chair that is not, it's like an extension of your closet because clean clothes just end up there and languish until the end of time. But sometimes just giving ourselves permission to let those things be as they are is that's something we need to help relieve some stress and just accept, hey, not every single thing in this household's going to be spick and span. And it's okay to have a it's okay to have a little disorganization here, or a lot of disorganization.
If especially if, like, the junk drawer bothers you, well, maybe once a quarter, you give yourself 15 minutes to clean that junk drawer out, and then you give yourself permission to let it get junky from that point on until the next time, the next quarter, and,
Yes. So
balance.
again, everything in balance. But part of that balance really can be letting yourself have a place where things can be in disarray, and that's okay. And maybe finding those old coupons right before they expire. I know folks have those in those drawers. No, I do. Wait, check your coupons. Don't miss out on your deals. Not in this economy. All right, now let's talk about setting boundaries and having clarity, right? So, we want to try to take steps to ensure that our working hours really are clearly defined. I know that oftentimes, especially in busy healthcare roles, the blend between time I'm off versus time I'm on, and it's hard to find that defining line sometimes. And sometimes situations happen in those particular roles where, hey, it's kind of part of the job. But we really want to try to keep the working hours defined as best we can because it's important to try to keep our personal life separate from work and give ourselves the time that truly is ours. Eh, with that, if you're dealing with a lot of stress and you feel like you're reaching your limit at work, it's really important to communicate that to your leadership. Ask for what you need so that you can be the best at your job. A lot of places of employment, a lot of hospital systems, I know that ours at Dartmouth has some of these resources, but there really are some dedicated resources to help employees try to prevent that burnout, whether that's through different wellness programs, mental health programs, even things like popping on for a little 30-minute yoga during the day. So there's ways to try to navigate reaching your limit at work. And if anything, it's really important to not just carry that alone with yourself. Talk to folks about it. Talk to your leadership, talk to coworkers, see what resources are out there for you too. Now, if you've been in a customer facing role, you have probably encountered someone who is very talkative, and you've likely encountered a time when you were just so short on time and you needed to get out of that interaction in order to get to your next task. I think we've all been there. There are chatty Cathys and talky Brads out there. But part of patient care is that emotional connection. It's important. So, at times, while this can put you a little behind with other patients, and sometimes it's your own coworkers too, we can get wrapped into conversations with, we still want to try to balance this, right? So, trying to develop some strategies to be attentive, polite, but also end conversations that continue on for just a lot longer than we really have time available for. Because we don't want to end up compromising again our work, we don't want to compromise our time with the next patients, things like that. So it's important to work on learning how to redirect conversations politely, right? This will hopefully cut down on things getting pushed to the end of the day or leaving you getting home from work later and then having little time for your non work obligations and needs. Now, if you're unsure how to redirect a conversation, you could try something like, that's really interesting and I would love to hear more. But at the moment, I really need to finish getting your medical history or finish up this procedure to make sure that we get you feeling better as quick as possible. But when I come back in later, I'd love to hear more about this. Setting boundaries when encountering customers or patients that speak abusively can be really difficult to endure and make you feel even more stressed and strained and burned down at work, too. We know a lot of folks deal with some unpleasant patients or customers. Now, you can be respectful in your job, of course, and take care of your customer or patient. But it's also important to remember that you are not obligated to tolerate abuse from anyone. And I think for folks in the medical field, there is a lot of that taking place. And folks working in the medical field have big hearts, they really care about their roles, and sometimes can really get caught up in the pattern of tolerating just atrocious behavior from patients and other folks alike. So, just a little reminder you don't have to tolerate that. Report things that are not okay, step away, walk away, leave a situation that is becoming abusive. Um, but make sure that you are advocating for yourself. And remember, you do not have to tolerate abuse from anyone.
That's exactly right. And sometimes, especially with in hospital settings, it could be like patients' families, and I get it because it's frustrating and sometimes like it's scary and you're nervous. But another tip for finding balance would be to try to incorporate flexibility. Life happens, sometimes we have to pivot or deal with a scheduling issue. So, if you can try to find ways to practice flexibility so that if something pops up, you're able to shift things or move things around in a way that doesn't feel like you're compromising anything. So, some tips for those in leadership would be having a flexible schedule or giving workers a little bit of say so in their schedule, allowing people to give feedback and give some information about what they need. having resources in place that promote mental health, or even just having open discussions with employees about stress levels and ways to lower stress. Encouraging your employees to take their time off and to take breaks, creating a supportive work environment. So, having effective communication, acknowledging positive efforts, creating an environment where you don't just get the negative feedback, you're also being recognized for things that you're doing well. And then using available technology just to make workflows easier. And some of that's usually like a systemic thing. But do we have any closing thoughts?
Help guide their people to doing what needs to be done to help them maintain this balance and prevent burnout and things. I would just throw out too, right? As a leader, your greatest commodity is your people. So it's essential that you take care of them, you listen to them, you try to meet them where they are, meet them halfway, try to implement things that can help prevent that burnout and help them balance, right? And remember that your people's greatest commodity is their time. So helping them figure out the best way to balance that, to protect it, I think it makes for a lot happier folks on the job, a lot more productive. And it's a win. It's a win for everybody on the team.
No, I think I agree with all that. I think those are great things to remember because I've I've definitely worked places where a really great employee was lost because of the lack of some of those things. So I think creating that environment where people are able to have balance is really important. Oftentimes, there are things that are out of our control, and it can feel impossible to find what feels like some sort of balance. We recognize and acknowledge that. But there are also expectations that we put on ourselves that can make things more difficult than they need to be. Maybe we think our home should look a different way, or we should host parties every so often, or we need to only serve certain types of meals. Taking shortcuts, putting off a task, and saying no to social obligations doesn't mean that we're not good enough or capable enough. Having extra time in your day to take a walk, read a book, enjoy a board game with your family, those are just as meaningful as making sure you do a load of laundry before bed or that you only cook meals from scratch. So try and look for ways that you can bend a little bit, for the ways you can give yourself a break and give some space to your schedule so that you feel less stressed and are less likely to burn out. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. If you like our episodes, the best compliment is to share with a friend. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please email us at dhbhs.media@hitchcock.org. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. And actually, something you just said made me think of this bending to give yourself a break, bending so that we do not break. Balance.